All right, so today we are diving deep into the testimony of Gareth Mnisi. This is a story about a man whose brotherly friendship with a police sergeant found itself right at the heart of a huge, multi-million rand corruption investigation. We're going to follow the evidence piece by piece to see exactly what happens when private loyalties and public duty collide. Let's get into it. So, the scene is set at a formal commission of inquiry. And look, this isn't just some stuffy meeting, This is a high-stakes legal arena. Every single word spoken here is put under a microscope. For someone like Mnisi, this is where careers and reputations are either made or completely broken. You can just feel the tension in the room as he gets ready to testify. And then, boom, right out of the gate, the commission's evidence leader, Advocate Chaskelson, just drops this bombshell. He lays the central accusation right on the table. This isn't just about some minor mistakes. No, he's directly alleging that a close personal friendship corrupted lucrative city contracts. That one sentence basically sets the entire hearing on fire. And that really is the question at the heart of all this, isn't it? How does a friendship, one they describe as brotherly, become the centerpiece of a massive corruption probe? We're going to follow the evidence that was presented at the commission and try to connect all the dots. Okay, so first things first. Before we can get into the tenders and all the controversy, we really need to understand the relationship itself. Just what was the bond between Gareth Mnisi and Sergeant Fannie Nkosi? Just look at how fast this all happens. It starts with a simple professional introduction in late 2023. But then, just a little over a year later, they're literally calling each other brothers for life. Mnisi even started bringing Nkosi to meetings because he said he felt unsafe. I mean, this clearly wasn't just some casual acquaintance from work. By his own account, it was a very close personal bond. So we've established this really deep personal bond. The next question then is, when did that friendship start to bleed over into official city business? This is where things get messy. And it all seems to start with payment issues for a company called Gubis Security. Now, on paper, the way a company like Gubis is supposed to get paid is super straightforward. You send in your invoice, it gets put into the system, a purchase order is created, and you get paid. It's simple, it's clean, and most importantly, it's traceable. This is how it's supposed to work. But yeah, that's not what happened here. Not even close. Instead, you see this really bizarre roundabout process. To sort out a simple payment, Mnisi doesn't use the official channels. Instead, his friend Sergeant Nkosi, who has absolutely no official role in any of this, becomes the middleman. He's the one calling a top city official on Mnisi's behalf. It's wild. Everything starts getting funneled through his friend. So why? Why go through this convoluted mess? Well, Mnisi's explanation was pretty simple. It was convenient, he said. It was easy for me. But the commission's evidence showed the complete opposite. Messages were getting delayed, it was causing confusion, it was actually really inefficient. The whole justification for using his buddy as a go-between just didn't seem to hold any water. And believe me, that whole Gubis payment issue, that was really just the tip of the iceberg. The inquiry then zeroed in on two major tenders, where Sergeant Nkosi's, let's call it assistance, became a very troubling recurring theme. And this is where a pattern starts to become pretty hard to ignore. We're talking at least 4 separate times. While a massive security tender was actively in process, Sergeant Nkosi was pushing 2 specific companies to Mnisi. And what do you know? Both of those companies ended up being part of the winning group. Now, here is the really crucial part. Mnisi himself admitted under oath that even he started to get suspicious. In his own words, he said it started to look less like a friend just asking questions and more like a deliberate attempt to influence a multi-million rand tender that he was in charge of. This table really just lays out how blurry all the lines became. A draft internal report on the tender? Yeah, he shared it with his friend. Confidential payment issues handled through his friend. And this next one is just, wow. A draft response to a police investigation was shared with Nkosi so he could get advice. Again and again, a civilian friend was given access to sensitive, official city business. So, faced with this absolute mountain of evidence, the commission's lawyers start to dismantle Mnisi's explanations one by one. They put his credibility and his judgment directly on trial. And then, Advocate Chaskelson asks the killer question. You see, the city had hired an independent law firm to be a probity auditor. Basically, their job was to be the watchdog and make sure the whole tender process was fair. So he asks, did Mnisi tell this firm about his brotherly connection and all of these unofficial chats? Mnisi's answer is just, it's stunning. there was no need to disclose that. He admits he saw zero reason to tell the ethics auditors about this incredibly close friendship, a friendship with a man who was actively pushing for a company where it turns out one of the directors wasn't Nkosi's own brother. Okay, let's just stop and really let this sink in. Here's what he didn't disclose: the brother-for-life friendship, the direct family tie to a bidding company, secret texts about regrouping on another tender, giving his friend access to a competitor's invoice, and sharing confidential legal documents. Not a single one of these pretty crucial facts was ever declared. For the commission, this is a whole field of red flags. So, what was his defense for all this? Well, Mnisi basically argued that his personal feelings didn't matter because the committee in charge of the bids, the BAC, is a panel. He claimed that no single person, not even him as the chairperson, could possibly influence the outcome. The system itself, he argued, was the protection. This defense puts the commission in a really tough spot. They're basically forced to weigh two completely different versions of the same events. Let's look at how these two stories stack up against each other. So you really have two completely different realities here. On one side, you've got Mnisi's story, a simple tale of convenience, a helpful friend, and a system that's just too strong to be corrupted. But then on the other side, you've got the hard evidence, the text messages, the phone records, and they paint a picture of a compromised process where an outsider had just unbelievable access and influence. Ultimately, the responsibility for figuring this all out falls right here with the commission. They're the ones who have to sift through all the testimony, weigh the witnesses' credibility against the cold, hard evidence, and decide which one of these stories is actually the truth. And that really brings us back to the fundamental problem, right? This case was never really about just one tender or one friendship. It's about a huge question of public service. When our personal loyalties clash with our public duties, where do we, and maybe more importantly, where should the people in power draw the line?